The rescue helicopters flew through the Afghan night, using terrain-following routes that kept them below enemy radar coverage. Two Black Hawks carried the assault teams, while a single MH-47 Chinook followed with additional support personnel and medical equipment. The aircraft maintained radio silence as they approached the abandoned Soviet base, where Commander Jake Mitchell was being held prisoner. Inside the lead helicopter, the reformed members of Trident 7 conducted final equipment checks while reviewing their assault plan one last time. Each operator carried extra ammunition and medical supplies, knowing that the rescue mission would likely result in a prolonged firefight with Taliban forces who had nothing to lose by fighting to the death. Petty Officer First Class David Chun adjusted his night vision scope and confirmed the radio frequencies for coordinating with the air support elements that would provide covering fire during the assault. The sniper from California felt the weight of responsibility for his commander's safety, knowing that his precision shots would be crucial during the most dangerous moments of the rescue operation. The Soviet-era military base sat on a barren plateau, surrounded by rocky hills that provided excellent defensive positions for Taliban fighters. Intelligence reports indicated that Mitchell was being held in a reinforced concrete bunker originally designed to protect Soviet officers from Mujahideen attacks during the 1980s conflict. Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Williams tested his machine gun one final time, ensuring that the weapon would function flawlessly during the upcoming battle. The Georgian's shoulder wound had healed enough for combat operations, but he knew that the physical demands of the mission would push his injury to its limits. The helicopter crews used advanced navigation systems to identify the exact landing zones that would place assault teams within striking distance of the target facility while remaining outside the effective range of enemy small arms fire. The pilots had trained extensively for night operations in mountainous terrain where weather and enemy fire created extreme hazards. Petty Officer Third Class Tony Rodriguez carried expanded medical supplies, including blood products and emergency surgical equipment that might be needed to treat Mitchell's injuries from 3 days of captivity. The team medic from New Mexico had studied Taliban interrogation techniques and prepared for the worst possible scenarios. General Hayes monitored the operation from the Tactical Operations Center at FOB Chapman, where real-time intelligence updates provided continuous information about enemy activities at the target facility. The commanding general had authorized the use of all available assets to ensure the rescue mission's success, regardless of cost. Captain Lisa Park tracked Taliban communications throughout the region, looking for any indication that enemy forces were aware of the approaching rescue operation. The intelligence analyst had identified several communication intercepts suggesting that Mitchell was scheduled to be moved to a new location within the next 12 hours. Petty Officer Second Class Alex Thompson maintained communications links with multiple support elements including airstrike platforms, medical evacuation helicopters, and quick reaction forces positioned to respond if the primary rescue mission encountered unexpected complications. The communications specialist understood that coordination would be critical during the chaotic moments of the assault. The first phase of the operation began when Air Force F-16 fighters struck the perimeter guard positions with precision-guided bombs designed to neutralize external defenses without causing structural damage to the buildings where Mitchell was being held. The airstrikes created massive confusion among Taliban defenders while clearing approach routes for the assault teams. Petty Officer First Class Sean Murphy prepared his demolition charges for breaching the reinforced concrete walls of the Soviet bunker where intelligence indicated their commander was imprisoned. The demolitions expert from Boston had calculated exact charge weights that would create entry points without risking collapse that could injure Mitchell. Chen's helicopter touched down on the northern ridge overlooking the facility, allowing the sniper to establish overwatch positions with clear lines of sight to the target buildings. Through his night vision scope, he could see Taliban fighters running between defensive positions, trying to organize a coherent response to the sudden air attack. The main assault helicopters landed simultaneously on the eastern and western approaches to the facility, disgorging assault teams that immediately moved toward their designated targets. Williams set up his machine gun position to provide suppressing fire while Murphy, Rodriguez, and Thompson advanced toward the bunker where Mitchell was believed to be held. Taliban fighters opened fire from prepared positions throughout the facility, using the concrete structures for cover while engaging the SEAL assault teams with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. The enemy resistance was fierce and well-coordinated, indicating that senior Taliban commanders were personally directing the defense. Chun began engaging priority targets with precision rifle fire, systematically eliminating Taliban fighters who posed the greatest threat to his advancing teammates. The sniper's night vision scope allowed him to identify enemy positions that were invisible to the assault teams moving through the facility under intense fire. Murphy reached the outer wall of the target bunker and immediately began placing shaped charges designed to create a breach large enough for the assault team while minimizing the blast effects inside the structure. The demolitions expert had to work quickly while under fire from Taliban defenders who understood the importance of preventing access to their prisoner. Rodriguez and Thompson provided security for Murphy while he prepared the breaching charges, engaging Taliban fighters who were attempting to reinforce the bunker's defenses. The team medic and communications specialist worked together to maintain their defensive perimeter while their demolitions expert completed his critical task. Williams' machine gun position came under concentrated attack from multiple Taliban firing positions, but the Georgian continued providing suppressing fire that prevented enemy fighters from massing against the assault teams. His sustained fire forced the Taliban defenders to remain in covered positions rather than maneuvering to better defensive locations. The shaped charges detonated with a controlled explosion that punched a precise hole through the concrete wall of the Soviet bunker. Murphy immediately tossed flashbang grenades through the breach to disorient any Taliban fighters who might be guarding Mitchell inside the structure. Thompson and Rodriguez followed Murphy through the breach, moving rapidly through the bunker's interior while clearing each room systematically. The communications specialist maintained radio contact with Chun and Williams while the team medic prepared to provide immediate medical attention for their rescued commander. Inside the bunker, the assault team discovered Mitchell in a small concrete cell that showed evidence of his resistance to Taliban interrogation efforts. The SEAL commander was conscious, but had clearly been beaten during his captivity. Rodriguez immediately began assessing his injuries, while Thompson established communications with the extraction helicopters. Mitchell's physical condition was better than expected, with no serious injuries that would prevent his movement to the extraction landing zone. The commander had managed to resist revealing classified information during his interrogation, maintaining operational security despite the physical abuse he had endured from his captors. Murphy provided security while Rodriguez helped Mitchell prepare for movement to the extraction point. The demolitions expert engaged several Taliban fighters who were attempting to recapture their prisoner, using his combat experience to maintain defensive positions while his teammates prepared for withdrawal. Chun continued providing sniper support as the rescue team prepared to move Mitchell from the bunker to the extraction landing zone. The California native had eliminated 12 Taliban fighters during the assault, significantly reducing the enemy's ability to pursue the rescue team during their withdrawal. Williams displaced his machine gun position to provide covering fire for the rescue team's movement to the extraction point. The Georgian's suppressing fire kept Taliban reinforcements pinned down while his teammates moved their injured commander across the open ground to the waiting helicopters. The extraction helicopters came under intense fire as they landed to pick up the rescue team and their recovered commander. Pilots demonstrated exceptional skill in maintaining stable platforms for loading personnel while enemy rounds struck their aircraft. The crew chiefs returned fire with door-mounted machine guns to suppress Taliban firing positions. Thompson coordinated with multiple air support elements to provide continuous covering fire during the extraction process. AC-130 gunships engaged Taliban reinforcements who were attempting to surround the landing zone, while helicopter gunships provided close air support for the departing rescue helicopters. Rodriguez continued monitoring Mitchell's condition during the flight back to FOB Chapman, ensuring that the rescued commander remained stable despite the physical trauma he had endured during 3 days of captivity. The team medic administered intravenous fluids and pain medication while monitoring vital signs. The successful rescue operation had extracted Mitchell from Taliban custody, but the cost had been significant. 2 helicopter crew members had been wounded by enemy fire during the extraction, and One of the assault helicopters had sustained damage that required emergency repairs before it could return to base. Chun maintained overwatch positions until all friendly forces had been extracted from the target area. The sniper's final shots eliminated several Taliban fighters who were attempting to engage the departing helicopters with rocket-propelled grenades that could have caused catastrophic damage to the rescue aircraft. Murphy's demolition expertise had been crucial to the mission's success, as his precisely placed charges had created the breach that allowed the rescue team to reach their commander without causing structural collapse that could have trapped or injured Mitchell inside the concrete bunker. The intelligence gathered during Mitchell's captivity proved valuable for understanding Taliban tactics and interrogation techniques. The SEAL commander's resistance to revealing classified information had protected ongoing operations, while his observations of enemy procedures would help prepare other operators for similar situations. Williams' machine gun fire had been instrumental in preventing Taliban reinforcements from overwhelming the assault teams during the critical moments when they were extracting Mitchell from his prison cell. The Georgian's willingness to fight despite his shoulder injury exemplified the dedication that defined Special Operations Forces. General Hayes personally greeted the rescue team upon their return to FOB Chapman, recognizing that the successful mission represented one of the most complex rescue operations conducted during the Afghanistan conflict. The general's decision to authorize maximum resources for the rescue had been validated by the mission's success. Captain Park's intelligence analysis had been crucial in identifying Mitchell's location and understanding Taliban defensive preparations at the facility. The analyst's expertise in communication intercepts and enemy behavior patterns had provided the foundation for the entire rescue operations planning process. The reunion between Mitchell and his team was emotional but brief, as military protocol required immediate medical evaluation and operational debriefing. The commander's 3 days in captivity had provided unique intelligence about Taliban operations that would benefit future missions throughout the region. Rodriguez's medical care during and after the rescue had ensured Mitchell's rapid recovery from his captivity ordeal. The team medic's preparation for treating various types of injuries had been essential for maintaining the commander's health during the extraction process and subsequent evacuation. Thompson's communications expertise had coordinated multiple support elements during the complex rescue operation, ensuring that air support, medical evacuation, and quick reaction forces were available when needed. The specialist's ability to manage multiple radio networks had been crucial for mission success. The rescue mission's success demonstrated the effectiveness of Special Operations Forces when properly supported with intelligence, air power, and logistical resources. Mitchell's safe return proved that the military's commitment to never leaving personnel behind was more than just words. The Taliban's attempt to use Mitchell as a propaganda tool had failed, dealing a significant blow to their credibility among supporters who had expected the captured American commander to be used for major political advantage. The successful rescue operation demonstrated American resolve and capability. Mitchell's experience in captivity had tested his resistance training and personal resilience under extreme conditions. The commander's successful withstanding of interrogation while maintaining hope for rescue exemplified the mental toughness required of special operations leaders. The bonds between the members of Trident 7 had been strengthened by their shared experience of losing and recovering their commander. The team's determination to rescue Mitchell regardless of personal risk had validated the trust and loyalty that defined elite military units. Chin returned to sniper duties with enhanced confidence in his ability to provide life-saving support for his teammates during high-risk operations. The California natives' precision shooting during the rescue had eliminated numerous threats while enabling the safe extraction of their commander. Williams recovered fully from his shoulder wound and continued serving with distinction in subsequent operations throughout Afghanistan. The Georgians' courage in fighting while injured had inspired other operators and demonstrated the selfless dedication required for special operations service. Murphy's demolition expertise continued to be crucial for breaching operations during raids against Taliban facilities throughout the region. The Boston native's ability to create precise entry points while minimizing collateral damage made him an invaluable asset for urban combat operations. Rodriguez applied the medical experience gained during Mitchell's rescue to save numerous lives during subsequent combat operations. The New Mexico medics' preparedness for treating various combat injuries had been proven under the most stressful possible conditions. Thompson's communication skills were recognized with assignment to additional high-priority missions requiring coordination between multiple military branches and international coalition partners. The Michigan specialist's expertise had been crucial for managing complex operational requirements. The rescue of Commander Jake Mitchell became a defining moment for Special Operations Forces in Afghanistan, demonstrating that American military personnel would never be abandoned regardless of the risks involved in bringing them home. The mission's success validated years of training and preparation while honoring the sacred commitment to leave no one behind. The debriefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman was filled with tension as the surviving members of Trident 7 sat across from Colonel Sarah Henderson, the Joint Special Operations Command liaison. Each man bore the physical and emotional scars of the failed mission that had cost them their commander and friend. Petty Officer First Class David Chen still had blood on his uniform from crawling through the rocky terrain during their desperate extraction. His sniper rifle lay disassembled on the table as evidence of the fierce firefight they had survived. The normally calm operator struggled to maintain his composure as he recounted the final moments when he had seen their commander being dragged away by Taliban fighters. Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Williams winced as the base medic adjusted the bandage on his shoulder wound. The machine gunner had continued providing covering fire even after being shot, but the guilt of leaving Mitchell behind was eating at him more than any physical injury. His Georgia drawl was barely audible as he described the overwhelming enemy fire that had pinned down the team. Colonel Henderson listened carefully to each man's account while taking detailed notes. The 45-year-old career officer had overseen hundreds of special operations missions during her 20-year career, but the capture of a SEAL commander represented a crisis that demanded immediate action. Every hour that Mitchell remained in enemy hands increased the likelihood that he would be executed or moved to a location beyond rescue. Petty Officer Third Class Tony Rodriguez, the team medic, had worked tirelessly to keep Williams stable during the helicopter extraction. The 24-year-old from New Mexico now faced the additional burden of knowing that his commander might be suffering from untreated injuries in Taliban custody. Rodriguez's medical training allowed him to imagine the various forms of torture that Mitchell might be enduring. The intelligence failure that had led to the ambush was becoming clearer as analysts reviewed intercepted communications and satellite imagery. The compound had been specifically prepared as a trap for American Special Operations Forces, with defensive positions and escape routes planned in advance. Someone with detailed knowledge of SEAL tactics had advised the Taliban fighters. Petty Officer Second Class Alex Thompson, the communications specialist, had maintained contact with multiple intelligence agencies throughout the night, trying to track any radio chatter that might indicate Mitchell's location. The former college football player from Michigan understood that time was their greatest enemy in planning a rescue operation. Major General Robert Hayes, the commanding officer of all Special Operations Forces in Afghanistan, arrived at FOB Chapman 6 hours after the failed mission. The 52-year-old West Point graduate had built his reputation on never leaving an operator behind, regardless of the risks involved. Hayes immediately began assembling resources for the most complex rescue operation of his career. The general brought with him Captain Lisa Park, a military intelligence analyst who specialized in tracking high-value targets in Afghanistan. The 34-year-old captain had spent 3 years studying Taliban communication patterns and safe house locations throughout the region. Her expertise would be crucial in narrowing down where Mitchell might be held. Petty Officer First Class Sean Murphy, the team breacher, had been unusually quiet since returning from the mission. The 33-year-old from Boston kept replaying the moments before the building collapsed, wondering if he could have done something different to prevent their commander's capture. His demolition expertise might be crucial for any rescue attempt. Captain Park's initial analysis suggested that Mitchell would likely be moved to one of 3 possible locations within the next 24 hours. Moving Mitchell to such a location would make him nearly impossible to locate, as he could be hidden among hundreds of buildings and moved frequently to prevent detection by surveillance assets. General Hayes authorized immediate drone surveillance of all three locations while assembling the largest rescue force in the history of Afghanistan operations. The mission would require coordination between multiple SEAL teams, Army Rangers, Air Force Special Operations pilots, and intelligence assets from across the region. Chun volunteered to lead the surveillance efforts, using his sniper training to observe potential target locations from concealed positions. His personal knowledge of Mitchell's behavior patterns might help identify which location was actually holding their commander. The California native felt responsible for his team leader's capture and was determined to play a role in his rescue. Williams, despite his shoulder injury, insisted on participating in any rescue mission. The machine gunner's experience with the Taliban tactics used in the failed operation would be valuable intelligence for planning a new assault. His emotional investment in rescuing Mitchell overrode any concerns about his physical limitations from the gunshot wound. Colonel Henderson coordinated with Pakistani military officials to ensure that any rescue operation near the border would not create an international incident. The political complexities of operating in the region required careful diplomatic negotiations while maintaining operational security for the mission planning process. Captain Park's analysis team worked around the clock to intercept Taliban communications that might reveal Mitchell's location. The intelligence officer had learned to recognize the communication patterns used by different Taliban cells, and any unusual radio traffic might indicate where the captured SEAL was being held. Rodriguez prepared medical equipment for treating serious injuries during a potential rescue operation. The team medic understood that Mitchell might have been wounded during his capture and could require immediate medical attention if they succeeded in locating him. His supplies included blood products and emergency surgical equipment. Thompson established secure communications links with intelligence assets throughout Afghanistan and Pakistan. The communications specialist created redundant networks to ensure that rescue teams could coordinate effectively even if primary communication systems were compromised during an operation. Murphy began studying the construction details of all three potential holding locations, looking for structural weaknesses that could be exploited during a rescue assault. The demolitions expert's knowledge of building materials and construction techniques might reveal unexpected entry points for assault teams. As the first 24 hours passed without any confirmed intelligence on Mitchell's location, General Hayes authorized the deployment of additional surveillance assets, including satellite reconnaissance and electronic intelligence gathering platforms. The search area was expanded to include locations that had not been initially considered. The psychological pressure on Mitchell's team members was intensifying as they imagined their commander enduring interrogation and possible torture. Each man dealt with the stress differently, but all of them struggled with the knowledge that their leader was suffering while they remained safe at the forward operating base. Intelligence analysts discovered that the Taliban cell responsible for Mitchell's capture had been planning the operation for several months. Intercepted communications revealed that they had specifically targeted SEAL operations in the region, studying American tactics and preparing countermeasures designed to capture rather than kill special operations personnel. The propaganda value of holding an American SEAL commander was already being exploited by Taliban leadership, who released statements claiming to have dealt a significant blow to coalition forces. These public statements provided additional confirmation that Mitchell was still alive, but they also indicated that his captors understood his value as a bargaining chip. Captain Park identified a pattern in Taliban communications that suggested Mitchell was being held at the abandoned Soviet base rather than the cave complex or village safe houses. The electronic signatures indicated increased security measures and command-level involvement at the facility, which would be consistent with holding a high-value prisoner. General Hayes authorized a reconnaissance mission to confirm Mitchell's presence at the Soviet base before committing to a full-scale rescue operation. The reconnaissance would be conducted by a small team of operators who could observe the facility without alerting Taliban forces to their interest in the location. Chun and Murphy volunteered for the reconnaissance mission, feeling that their familiarity with Taliban tactics and Mitchell's behavior would help them identify whether their commander was actually held at the target facility. The two SEALs would insert by helicopter and observe the base for 48 hours before reporting back. The reconnaissance team discovered that the Soviet base was indeed being used to hold a high-value prisoner. They observed increased guard rotations, vehicle movements consistent with supply runs for additional personnel, and communication activity that indicated the presence of senior Taliban leadership at the facility. More importantly, Chen was able to identify Mitchell through his sniper scope during a brief moment when the SEAL commander was moved between buildings. The positive identification confirmed that their target was alive and provided crucial intelligence about the facility's layout and security procedures. The rescue operation would require multiple phases executed with perfect timing. First, airstrikes would neutralize external defenses and create confusion among the Taliban fighters. Second, assault teams would breach the facility from multiple directions while rescue teams moved directly toward Mitchell's location. William's shoulder injury had healed enough for him to participate in the rescue operation, and General Hayes authorized the reformation of Trident 7 for the mission. The team's personal knowledge of Mitchell's behavior and their emotional investment in his rescue made them the ideal choice to lead the assault on his holding cell. Thompson coordinated with Air Force Special Operations pilots to plan helicopter insertion and extraction routes that would minimize exposure to enemy fire. The communications specialist also established backup extraction points in case the primary landing zones were compromised during the operation. Rodriguez prepared specialized medical equipment for treating potential injuries that Mitchell might have sustained during his captivity. The team medic's supplies included medications for treating infections, dehydration, and trauma that could result from prolonged imprisonment and interrogation. Murphy studied the construction details of the Soviet-era buildings where Mitchell was being held. The demolitions expert identified several structural weak points that could be exploited to create new entry points while minimizing the risk of causing building collapse that might injure their commander. The final mission briefing took place 72 hours after Mitchell's capture. General Hayes emphasized that this would be a one-time opportunity, as Taliban forces would likely move their prisoner immediately after any rescue attempt, regardless of whether it succeeded or failed. Captain Park provided detailed intelligence on Taliban force strength at the facility, including guard rotations, weapon positions, and communication procedures. Her analysis indicated that the rescue team would face approximately 20 Taliban fighters, including several experienced commanders who would fight to the death rather than surrender. Chen received updated satellite imagery showing the exact location of the building where Mitchell was being held. The sniper would provide overwatch and precision fire support while his teammates breached the facility and fought their way to their commander's location. As the rescue helicopters lifted off from FOB Chapman, each member of the team understood that they were either bringing their commander home or they would die trying. The mission represented everything that Special Operations Forces stood for, never leaving a teammate behind, regardless of the personal cost. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Afghan mountains as Commander Jake Mitchell adjusted his radio headset one final time. His team of 6 Navy SEALs had been tracking a high-value target for 3 weeks through the rugged terrain of Kunar province. Intelligence reports indicated that Abdul Rashid, a senior Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces, was hiding in a remote compound near the Pakistan border. Mitchell's team, call sign Trident 7, had built a reputation for precision operations in some of the most dangerous areas of Afghanistan. The 38-year-old commander from Texas had led over 40 successful missions during his 3 deployments. His men trusted him completely, and he had never lost a single operator under his command. The compound sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking a narrow valley. Satellite imagery showed 3 buildings connected by stone walls, with clear fields of fire in all directions. It was a fortress designed by someone who understood military tactics. The approach would be challenging, but Mitchell's team had faced worse odds before. Petty Officer First Class David Chun crouched behind a boulder, scanning the target area through his sniper scope. The 29-year-old from California had been with Mitchell for 2 years and could read his commander's thoughts during operations. Chen spotted 2 sentries on the main building's roof, and at least 3 more moving between the structures. Overwatch has eyes on 5 tangos, Chen whispered into his radio. 2 on the roof, 3 mobile. Standard AK-47s, no heavy weapons visible. Mitchell nodded as he processed the information. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Williams would provide suppressing fire from the eastern ridge while Chun covered from the north. The rest of the team would breach the main compound under cover of darkness. Williams, a 26-year-old demolitions expert from Georgia, had already positioned his M249 light machine gun with clear lines of sight to the compound's entrance. His southern drawl was barely audible as he confirmed his position over the radio. The young SEAL had earned his place on the team through exceptional marksmanship and an ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. As darkness fell, the team moved into their final positions. Petty Officer Third Class Tony Rodriguez, the team medic from New Mexico, carried extra medical supplies knowing that mountain operations often resulted in injuries from the rocky terrain alone. At 24, he was the youngest member of the team but had already proven himself in numerous firefights across Afghanistan. Petty Officer Second Class Alex Thompson, the communications specialist from Michigan, established secure radio contact with their base at Forward Operating Base Chapman. The 31-year-old former college football player ensured that extraction helicopters would be ready at multiple landing zones, depending on how the mission developed. The final team member, Petty Officer First Class Sean Murphy, was responsible for breaching doors and clearing rooms. The 33-year-old from Boston had grown up in a family of police officers and brought street-smart tactics to military operations. His ability to read dangerous situations had saved the team multiple times during urban combat operations. Mitchell checked his watch. 0230 hours. The compound had been quiet for over an hour, with only one sentry visible on the roof. Intelligence suggested that Rashid preferred to keep a small security detail to avoid attracting attention from coalition forces. This worked in the SEALs' favor, but Mitchell knew that overconfidence had killed more operators than enemy bullets. The team moved down the rocky slope with practiced silence. Each man carried approximately 60 pounds of equipment including weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, and communications gear. The weight was distributed carefully to maintain mobility while ensuring they had everything needed for the mission and potential emergency situations. Chen's voice crackled through their earpieces. Movement on the roof. Single Tango walking patrol pattern. Window of opportunity in 90 seconds when he reaches the far corner. Mitchell gave hand signals to his team. They would have less than 3 minutes to cross the open ground and reach the compound walls before the sentry returned to a position where he could see their approach route. The rocky terrain made silent movement challenging, but these men had trained for exactly these conditions. Williams provided overwatch as the assault team moved forward. His machine gun was positioned to provide suppressing fire if the operation was compromised, but the goal was to maintain stealth until they had secured the target building. The success of the mission depended on capturing Rashid alive for intelligence gathering. Murphy reached the compound wall first and immediately began preparing charges for the main gate. The explosives were designed to create a breach without bringing down the entire structure. Rodriguez and Thompson took positions on either side of the gate, ready to move through once the breach was created. Mitchell and the remaining team members prepared for room-to-room clearing once they entered the compound. Each building would need to be systematically searched while maintaining security and preventing Rashid from escaping or destroying valuable intelligence materials. The sentry on the roof continued his patrol pattern, unaware that 6 highly trained operators were positioned just meters below his position. Chun tracked the man through his scope, ready to take him down silently if the mission was compromised. The suppressed sniper rifle would drop the sentry before he could raise an alarm. Mitchell's radio crackled with an update from their intelligence support team at FOB Chapman. Trident 7, be advised that drone surveillance shows no additional vehicles approaching your position. You are clear to proceed with the operation. The commander acknowledged the message and gave the final hand signal to his team. Murphy's charges were ready. The assault team was in position, and their overwatch elements had clear fields of fire. Everything was proceeding according to plan, but Mitchell's experience had taught him that enemy contact could change everything in seconds. Thompson monitored multiple radio frequencies to ensure no enemy communications were indicating awareness of their presence. The communications specialist also maintained contact with their extraction helicopters, which were standing by at a safe distance. If the mission went wrong, they would need immediate air support and medical evacuation capabilities. Rodriguez checked his medical kit one final time. The team medic carried supplies to treat gunshot wounds, explosive injuries, and trauma cases that might result from the operation. His training had prepared him to work under fire while providing life-saving medical care to wounded teammates. As the sentry disappeared around the corner of the building, Mitchell gave the signal to execute. Murphy triggered his charges, creating a controlled explosion that opened the compound gate without alerting every enemy fighter in the valley. The team moved through the breach with practiced efficiency. The first building was empty except for weapons and ammunition storage. Murphy and Rodriguez cleared each room methodically while Thompson maintained communications, and Chun provided overwatch from his position outside the compound walls. Williams kept his machine gun, trained on potential escape routes. The second building contained living quarters for the security detail. The team discovered 3 Taliban fighters sleeping in separate rooms. Each man was quickly subdued and secured with zip ties before they could alert other members of the group. Standard operating procedure required taking prisoners whenever possible for intelligence gathering. Mitchell's team moved toward the main building where intelligence suggested Rashid would be located. The structure was larger than the others and showed signs of recent construction improvements. Satellite imagery had indicated this was likely the command center for the Taliban cell operating in the region. As they approached the main building, Chen's voice came through their earpieces with urgency. "Commander, I'm seeing movement in the valley below. Looks like a convoy of 3 vehicles heading toward your position. Estimated time of arrival 10 minutes. The intelligence had been wrong. Rashid's security detail was much larger than expected, and reinforcements were already en route to the compound. Mitchell had to make a critical decision: abort the mission or accelerate the timeline, and complete the capture before enemy reinforcements arrived. Mitchell chose to press forward. His team had come too far and invested too much planning to abort now. They would have to capture Rashid and extract within the next 8 minutes before the compound was surrounded by additional enemy forces. Murphy prepared explosive charges for the main building's entrance while Rodriguez and Thompson took positions to provide security. The assault had to be fast and decisive to prevent Rashid from escaping or calling for additional support from Taliban forces throughout the region. The charges detonated, and the team rushed through the breach. The main building was more heavily defended than expected. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions as Taliban fighters who had been waiting in ambush positions opened fire on the SEAL team. Mitchell realized immediately that the intelligence had been deliberately falsified. This was not just a hideout for a single high-value target. The compound was a trap designed to lure American Special Operations Forces into a carefully prepared killing zone. Williams opened fire with his machine gun from the ridgeline, trying to suppress enemy positions and provide covering fire for his trapped teammates. Chen began engaging targets with precision rifle fire, but the Taliban fighters had prepared defensive positions throughout the building. Inside the compound, Mitchell's team found themselves under fire from multiple directions. The Taliban fighters knew the building layout perfectly and had prepared interlocking fields of fire that made advancement extremely dangerous. Rodriguez was forced to treat Williams for a bullet wound to his shoulder while returning fire. Thompson's radio crackled with emergency calls as he tried to coordinate immediate air support and medical evacuation. The team was pinned down inside a hostile compound with enemy reinforcements approaching their position. The mission had gone from a planned capture operation to a desperate fight for survival. Murphy used his demolition expertise to create new exit routes through the building's walls, but each explosion revealed additional enemy positions. The Taliban fighters had clearly been expecting this type of assault and had prepared accordingly with overlapping defensive positions. Chun continued providing sniper support from outside the compound, but his position was becoming untenable as enemy reinforcements began arriving in the valley below. The approaching vehicles contained at least 20 additional Taliban fighters who would surround the compound and eliminate any hope of extraction. Mitchell made the hardest decision of his military career. The mission to capture Rashid had failed, and now his priority was getting his team out alive. He ordered his men to prepare for immediate extraction while fighting their way to the designated helicopter landing zone. As the team prepared to withdraw from the compound, a massive explosion rocked the main building. Mitchell found himself separated from his men, trapped in a section of the structure that had partially collapsed. Enemy fighters quickly moved to secure the area where the SEAL commander had last been seen. Williams, despite his shoulder wound, continued providing covering fire as Chun attempted to reach Mitchell's position. Rodriguez worked frantically to establish radio contact with their trapped commander, while Thompson coordinated with incoming air support and extraction helicopters. The sound of approaching helicopter rotors mixed with continuous gunfire as Mitchell's team fought desperately to reach their commander. But the Taliban fighters had achieved their primary objective. They had captured one of America's most experienced special operations commanders, and now they would use him as a bargaining chip against coalition forces. As extraction helicopters arrived under heavy enemy fire, the remaining members of Trident 7 were forced to make an agonizing decision. They could not locate Mitchell in the rubble and smoke of the collapsed building, and staying longer would result in the entire team being killed or captured. Chin's final sight through his sniper scope showed Taliban fighters dragging an unconscious figure away from the compound toward waiting vehicles. The man appeared to be wearing American military equipment, but the distance and smoke made positive identification impossible. The helicopter extraction was conducted under intense enemy fire as Rodriguez, Thompson, Murphy, Williams, and Chun were pulled from the mountainside. Each man knew they were leaving their commander behind. But military protocol was clear about not sacrificing an entire team in an attempt to rescue one operator. As the helicopters disappeared into the Afghan night, Taliban fighters celebrated their greatest victory against American Special Operations Forces. They had not only survived an assault by elite Navy SEALs, but had captured their commander. The propaganda value alone would be worth millions to their cause. Mitchell regained consciousness hours later in a dark room that smelled of diesel fuel and unwashed bodies. His head throbbed from the explosion, and he could taste blood in his mouth. As his vision cleared, he realized he was bound with heavy rope and surrounded by armed Taliban fighters who were speaking rapidly in Pashto. The SEAL commander understood enough of the local language to realize that his captors were debating whether to execute him immediately or keep him alive for propaganda purposes. Either way, Mitchell knew that his survival depended on his ability to escape before his location was moved to a more secure facility. Outside the building where Mitchell was being held, his captors were already making plans to transport him to a remote mountain stronghold where coalition forces would never be able to locate him. The Taliban commander who had orchestrated the trap was eager to parade his American prisoner before international media outlets. Meanwhile, at FOB Chapman, the surviving members of Trident 7 were being debriefed by intelligence officers who needed to understand exactly how the mission had gone wrong. The loss of Commander Mitchell was not just a personal tragedy for his team, it was a strategic disaster that would require immediate action to prevent. The clock was already ticking for a rescue mission that would become one of the most daring operations in the history of American Special Operations Forces.